Sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones who shout, threaten, or rage. They're the ones who understand emotions too well. They read a room like a script, sense tension before it's spoken, and adjust their tone like a seasoned actor. You feel seen, understood, even safe around them, until you realize they've been guiding your emotions all along. That's the paradox of emotional intelligence. The same skill that builds deep empathy can also be used to control it. It's not always a gift of connection. Sometimes it's a weapon, sharpened by self-awareness, wrapped in charm, and hidden behind a calm smile. And once you felt it used against you, you'll never forget the precision of its quiet power. We tend to treat emotional intelligence like a universal good, the secret ingredient of strong leaders, loving partners, and grounded minds. It's the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, both your own and others. In theory, it's what separates wisdom from impulse, empathy from chaos. But in reality, emotional intelligence is neutral. It's a tool, and like any tool, it depends on the hands that wield it. A person with high emotional intelligence can inspire calm, repair conflict, and create belonging. But they can also manipulate trust, exploit vulnerabilities, and bend people's feelings to serve their own goals, often without a trace of overt cruelty. Psychologists call this Machiavellian emotional intelligence, the ability to strategically influence emotions while appearing genuine. It's not always born from malice. Sometimes it emerges from survival, power, or fear of losing control. But make no mistake, it's one of the most subtle and effective forms of manipulation ever developed by the human mind. Because it doesn't demand obedience, it earns it through empathy. To understand the dark side of emotional intelligence, we have to look at intent. Two people can perform the same act, comforting someone, mediating an argument, calming a tense situation. Yet only one does it for connection. The other does it for control. Take the emotionally strategic manipulator. They don't raise their voice. They study yours. They listen for tone shifts, microexpressions, hesitations, the emotional tells that reveal what matters to you. They catalog your insecurities quietly, then use them when the timing is right. In relationships, this person seems emotionally mature, patient, intuitive, grounded. But behind that calmness is calculation. They know when to appear hurt, to evoke guilt. They know when to act distant to trigger your chase. They understand how to phrase a criticism, so it sounds like concern. This isn't always a narcissist. Sometimes it's someone who learned early that emotions are leverage. Maybe they grew up in an unpredictable household, where reading emotional cues was a matter of safety. Maybe they became experts at predicting others' moods because unpredictability terrified them. Over time, emotional awareness became their armor, and eventually their weapon. Psychologists suggest that when emotional intelligence develops in environments of fear or instability, it can become hyper-focused on control, not to harm, but to prevent being harmed. And this is where darkness grows, in the gap between protection and manipulation. Consider the corporate world. A leader with high emotional intelligence can inspire a team, resolve conflict, and build loyalty. But a leader with dark emotional intelligence knows exactly how to maintain power. They can appear understanding while subtly guilt-tripping employees into overwork. They use empathy selectively, rewarding compliance with validation and withdrawing warmth as punishment. They never shout. They don't need to. Their silence, their tone, their perfectly timed pauses, that's enough to regulate an entire room's emotions. And here's what makes it so insidious. Most people never realize it's happening because it feels emotionally intelligent. It feels safe. But what's really happening is emotional calibration, a calculated alignment of others' feelings to sustain influence. It's persuasion without pressure, control without coercion, and it leaves no fingerprints. In psychology, this is known as emotional regulation for manipulation. It's the dark twin of empathy, the ability to feel with others, but use that understanding to lead them where you want them to go. The difference lies in motive. Empathy seeks connection. Dark emotional intelligence seeks control, disguised as connection. And when you can't tell which one you're dealing with, that's when it's already working. Emotional intelligence at its purest can heal. It builds bridges where words fail and diffuses storms before they form. But when awareness of emotion becomes a strategy, a way to win arguments, maintain dominance, or mask insecurity, it transforms from insight into manipulation. The same sensitivity that allows someone to comfort, you can also allow them to control you. And the line between the two isn't always clear. Now, we'll explore how emotional intelligence can become a silent form of power, how some people use empathy not to connect, but to disarm. Because the dark side of emotional intelligence doesn't announce itself. It whispers, it smiles, and it convinces you that you're understood, just before it turns that understanding into influence. The darkest side of emotional intelligence isn't found in cruelty. It's found in charm. The emotionally intelligent manipulator doesn't need to raise their voice or make demands. They make you want to give your trust, your time, your loyalty. Their secret lies in emotional mirroring, the ability to reflect your feelings so perfectly that you mistake it for connection. They become what you need. Empathetic when you're hurting, calm when you're anxious, strong when you're uncertain. And in that illusion of safety, you begin to let your guard down. Psychologists call this emotional attunement, but when weaponized, it becomes emotional engineering, shaping another person's inner state without them ever realizing it. They'll validate your pain, but not to heal it. They'll echo your beliefs, not because they share them, but because agreement earns influence. They'll learn your emotional language, your triggers, your comforts, your silences, and speak it fluently until your emotions become readable code. Some use it consciously. The narcissist who reads your empathy like an open book. Others do it instinctively. People who grew up having to sense moods to survive. They learned early that understanding emotions was protection, and over time, that skill became power. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's trauma disguised as talent. And then there's a subtler kind of manipulator, the savior. They appear endlessly patient, endlessly understanding. The person who always knows how to say the right thing. But underneath that compassion lies a quiet need to be needed. Their empathy binds you, not through fear, but through gratitude. They save you, not to help, but to belong. This is what makes emotional intelligence so complex. It doesn't just belong to villains. It lives inside anyone who's ever used understanding as armor. When we fear rejection, we control how others feel about us. When we crave approval, we shape our emotions to please. When we've been hurt, we may use empathy as surveillance, reading people before they can harm us. The dark side isn't only about manipulation. It's about the subtle exchange of emotion for safety. And sometimes, it's the most empathetic people who fall deepest into that darkness, because they understand pain well enough to control it in others and in themselves. Emotional intelligence, at its core, was never meant to control others. It was meant to create understanding. But understanding, when filtered through fear or insecurity, can twist into something else. Something protective, defensive, calculating. Think about it. The moment we start managing how others feel about us, we step into emotional performance. We measure our tone, our reactions, our vulnerability, not for authenticity, but for outcome. We stop feeling emotions and start curating them. It's emotional control masquerading as maturity. And yet, beneath that control, there's often pain. Because the need to manage emotions, yours or someone else's, almost always comes from a time when you couldn't, when chaos ruled the room, when words were weapons and silence meant danger. So you learn to read every flicker in a face, every tremor in a voice, every pause before a lie. You became emotionally intelligent not because you wanted to, but because you had to. That's the haunting beauty of it. The same gift that protects you can also imprison you. You begin to anticipate instead of feel, to soothe instead of speak, to control instead of connect. True emotional intelligence is not about mastering emotion. It's about trusting it. It's allowing yourself to feel deeply without needing to predict, adjust, or strategize. It's the courage to be misunderstood rather than perfectly composed. Because real empathy isn't manipulation. It's surrender, a willingness to meet someone where they are without trying to move them. And that's the paradox. The more you try to control emotion, the further you drift from authenticity. And the less authentic you are, the lonelier your empathy becomes. Emotional intelligence is power, but power always carries a shadow. The question isn't whether you're emotionally intelligent. It's whether you use that intelligence to connect or to control. If you use empathy to make others feel seen, that's wisdom. If you use it to make them see you a certain way, that's strategy. And only you can tell which one you're practicing. Maybe the true mastery of emotional intelligence isn't in reading others. It's in reading yourself. Recognizing when your empathy is genuine and when it's laced with fear. When your calm is real and when it's just emotional armor. Because the darkest manipulations don't begin with malice. They begin with a quiet desire to never feel powerless again. So ask yourself, when you understand someone deeply, what do you do with that understanding? Do you hold it gently? Or do you use it to shape them? If this made you think differently about emotional intelligence, subscribe and stay with me, because the next story might not be about others at all. It might be about you. Because sometimes the most dangerous form of manipulation is the one we use on ourselves.